Folks, this is Brian Harris with the Independent Black Voters Speak as we continue our series of Know Your Candidates. I'm here with one of the Black Book Media crew, Mr. Jason Swan. What's up, Jason?
How you doing, Brian?
All right. He's Mr. As you see, he is Mr. Vegas, hovering over the city, making sure everybody's safe. And today, we have a candidate here who's running for family court, Miss Soonhee Bailey, or Attorney Soonhee Bailey. How are you today?
Great. Thank you for having me.
Okay. Well, like I said, we're here to find out about you, to find out about the department, and for you to convince us that you may be one of the people we want to vote for. So take it away. Tell us a little bit about yourself and the office.
All right. And my name is Soonhee Bailey, as we already said. I'm running for Family Court Department I. A little bit of information about myself. I am originally from the state of Washington. My mom is a retired hairdresser. My dad is a retired heavy equipment mechanic. I was raised on a farm. My grandparents had 80 acres, so my car was a John Deere tractor. I actually went to the University of Washington on a scholarship and also supported myself as a food server. I went to Seattle University School of Law, and after I graduated, I became a deputy public defender in King and Pierce County in Washington, so that's the Seattle-Tacoma area. And I did that until the birth of my eldest daughter. When I was pregnant with my second child, my eldest was diagnosed with autism, and she became extremely violent. We could not find a program for her, and we became very desperate. Actually, some doctors told us to put her in a home and get on with our life because she wasn't going to get any better. And my roommate from college, she lived in Henderson, and she actually sent us a newspaper clipping talking about the autism programs here in Las Vegas. We came down and we investigated them, and they were perfect for our daughter. So in 2003, we became proud Clark County Nevadans, moved down here and obtained the program. It's called ABA, Applied Behavioral Analysis, through the Lobos Center. My daughter had 15 years of that and actually went from 250 aggressive episodes per day to about one per month. Because of the support of that program in this community, I was able to continue my law practice. I was a deputy public defender. I went into civil law, and then I became a hearing officer for the Taxi Cab Authority before I became the state of Nevada acting labor commissioner. And then over 5 years ago, I was selected to serve as a hearing master in family court, where I serve to this day. And I'm in the juvenile delinquency department. And during that time, I actually took my knowledge of autism, and we created the only program in the nation. It's called Day Court Detention Alternative for Autistic Youth. It is a diversionary program for youth who come into the juvenile delinquency system to divert them out of the criminal justice system and keep them out of the adult system. So I'm running for Family Court Department I because I love working with this community, and I want to continue to serve this community just like they've helped my family.
Great. That's good to hear. We always like defenders too, because at least you have an understanding of what people go through. So, is there incumbent? I can't remember. Is there an incumbent in this race?
Judge Cheryl Moss is retiring after serving the community.
Okay, so no incumbent.
No.
Okay, great. Tell me a little bit more on what this actual department, Family Courts Department, does. What's their roles? What's their responsibilities? What do they do in this actual department?
Well, it depends. The departments can do any of the different categories that family court covers. So it depends on what the chief judge assigns next year. Right now it's doing divorce, which in child custody, divorce, property settlements. But we also, in family court, we cover child dependency actions, abuse and neglect cases, juvenile delinquency, probate, guardianship, and child support. And we also have a TPO for hearing masters as well. So we cover all different areas.
Okay.
So it can actually encompass any of those areas depending on what the chief judge decides next year.
Okay, great. So obviously they're putting on more departments because obviously your business must be good. Tell me, what do you think is good about the existing courts, family courts, and where do you think there's room for improvement?
Well, I'll start with room for improvement. I think any system, even if it's considered perfect, always has room for improvement. And in our case, I know that we're really working on trying to get cases resolved in a timely manner so that people can get resolutions of their cases. These are the most sensitive, emotional cases for everyone. They want their child custody cases decided. They want to know where the child's going to be. They want to split custody. They want to make sure there's a set schedule, which is good for the entire family, including the children. So those are things that we're working on and that we continue to do. I think that what we have now in place as far as access to the self-help center right there on the campus. Our campus is easy to get to and actually access, so it's very accessible. You can find parking. You don't have to struggle for parking. You don't have to worry about where you're going in the building. It's very accessible as far as 3 floors. We can get you to all the clerks. There's a set system in place. There's someone right there when you walk in, an informational person to help direct you on where you go. And there's also a lot of clerks and a lot of programs that we set up to help out. There's also some programs for those who are representing themselves to help educate them in the system and help them also defend themselves or prepare their cases themselves, so they're not going in cold trying to figure out what's happening. So that way we're making sure everyone has that access to information. And lately, especially with the COVID situation, we've increased the ability to do hearings via video. So you could be just like you are right now and appear in court, which helps you because say if you're working or something else, you can work it into your schedule and not worry about taking a whole day off to go sit down in court waiting for your case to be called. So we're always working on that impact to minimize the impact to everyone's lives and try to get your resolution.
Okay, great. Now, one of the things that obviously this court has a high amount of people who come in with no attorneys versus some that come in with attorneys. So that's obviously a disadvantage to the layman that comes in and they're trying to do what's best for their child, but sometimes they just don't have the financial means. Because it's interesting, a lot of times we hear about support and it's for the poor per se, what you define poor, because almost everybody's poor nowadays. It's just that you have a bigger day-by-day check. But you have a lot of people who can afford, who would like to afford some type of assistance, but they're either, like I said, they're not poor to the point where they can't afford it, but they don't have enough disposable income to where they can afford to pay the hourly wages. How can we find some type of a middle ground? What can we do to balance the playing field so that these parents, they're in a difficult situation, but they're allowed to, what am I trying to say, to have a better defense or a better understanding of this court system?
Well, what we do is we have the self-help center, so people can go there and get assistance, and that's not dependent on your income. You can just go and ask questions. I mean, they're not lawyers. We also have the Ask a Lawyer program, where you can come and ask lawyers that volunteer their time, and they'll give you some answers and help you guide you in the right direction. Again, I said there's also a great class where they teach pro-pers, people who are representing themselves, how to present and put together like their trial notebooks, make sure they get things together. I know that all the judges, and I do discovery as well, so I do see a lot of pro-pers. When I was in guardianship, I saw a lot of pro-pers. You talk with them. You can't help them with their case, but in the beginning, when you first have your initial meetings, you'll give them the information on the law. You tell them right off the bat, the law presumes joint custody. You help them out as much as you can and you give them direction. Also, the Clark County Bar Association, you can call them. They'll give you a list of divorce attorneys where you can call. And some people may think they can't afford an attorney. They might actually be able to take one on payments or something else, but they actually have to call some people. So some people will prematurely not call anyone. So we kind of encourage that as well. So we do everything we can to educate them about the system. But I do know every single judge, and even myself when I've had hearings, when you have people that represent themselves, I've seen them still get fair hearings because they still present the evidence. They're still allowed to talk and give everything that they're talking about and talk about why any particular point they either do defenses or not. So it's a very open system that we really are cognizant of people representing themselves.
Okay.
So while it's not ideal, we at least try to guide them in the right direction.
Yeah, I've had situations, and this is interesting because I've been fortunate enough not to have to go through this court system. But we've seen situations of delays and then maybe reassigned to a different judge, and then you worked to substantiate and spend maybe money, a lot of time to get custody because maybe the situation was that one parent actually should have had custody, and then they walk in the next court they turn around and they put everything back to where it was. And now a person spent five, 10, $15,000 to set something up, and at the blink of an eye, that person's back to square one. How can we do that? I mean, that's got to be discouraging. Again, I haven't experienced it, but people I know have experienced this. How do we get some type of what am I trying to say? How do we get a system that understands there's expense when you've gone to court, and then now you reset the ball and say, oh, we're just going to start over again?
Well, I think that the system already is very aware of the expenses involved, mostly because almost every motion or anything else always has a motion for attorney fees. But we're always cognizant of that, because time and all the time that anyone's down there, it costs money. So we try to take care of things as quick as possible with that idea of knowing it's costing everyone money to be there, which is why you see that hearings, we try to set them very tight and try to keep on that schedule. We can't always avoid delays. We try to push things along as much as possible. I know that I will push people to trials and I'll deny continuances. And I was, especially in guardianship, I said, no, we're getting to this matter because this child needs to figure out where they're going. So it just depends on the different situations. I don't know what happened to cause someone to do a complete turnaround, but I'm assuming that there's a lot more facts and circumstances that came out, because I know the judges spend a lot of time and are aware of the impact of every single decision that we make, because these are families and we have to be aware of that. And every judge that I've worked for, which is the entire, I work for all the family court judges, they take that job extremely serious, and they really investigate and actually review everything and analyze everything before they make a decision.
Okay. Now, your opinion, do you think that the courts are balanced at this time?
In terms of balance, you have to give me more information.
As far as, do you believe, and again, I'm the independent Black voter, so I asked this question, as far as balanced and unbiased, and do you believe that everybody that comes in there is treated fairly with the same dignity? What's your opinion on that?
I think that we really try hard to avoid any type of biases. I know personally, when we go to judicial college, we're trained, and there was this fabulous course. It was called implicit bias. So it really made you dig deep to figure out what biases you may hold, that, we don't openly say something like, oh, I don't like people with yellow shirts or anything like that. Mm-hmm. We actually are cognizant of that. And so you're supposed to be more aware of it. And as you're taught and you're more aware of potential bias, then you can address it and make sure you're looking at everything fairly. So the court's aware of that implicit bias, and we do everything we can to train ourselves to try to avoid that. So we try to deal with the facts, and that's why you see all the different factors and everything else that go into it, and the presumption for joint custody. It takes a lot to overcome that, and you have to overcome that presumption. And we look at that with the evidence that comes in front of us, not the emotional, he said, she said, they're always doing this or they don't do this. We try to cut it down to look at the actual facts of the case and not the emotions. And so that way we can make a decision that's not playing on our emotions or potential implicit biases.
Okay. Jason, you have any questions?
Yes, Sonny. What do you believe is going to be your strongest asset that you're going to bring to the bench?
I bring experience. I have 23 years of experience in criminal, civil, administrative, and family law. I have been a pro tem judge up in the state of Washington, as well as down here in municipal court, as well as Las Vegas Township Court. I have thousands of hours as a pro tem judge before I became a hearing master. I have hundreds of trials that I have either conducted or presided over in 2 different states. I am very aware of how to run a very heavy calendar and how to keep the system moving. I'm also the author of the Nevada Courtroom Handbook on Evidence. I'm a co-author. It's a book that's published by Westlaw, Thomas Reuters, and it's a treatise about all the rules of evidence. So I'm very familiar with the rules of evidence and how to treat them to trial. I'm not scared to go to trial, and I'm not scared to resolve matters. And that's really what I'm looking at, is the best interest of the family is to get things resolved in a fair and timely manner. And I have that experience to be able to do that.
Fantastic. Right. Now, you told me, now, I know what you've been doing, you actually were in family law. You were actually an attorney that was historically, you were in family law before you came into what you're doing now.
Actually, historically, I started as a criminal attorney. Then I became a civil attorney, labor commissioner, taxi cab
Yeah.
authority before I moved over to family court. I have done some pro bono cases with legal aid. So that's my experience with family law. So I have experience, and I've been there every day for the last 5 years working in the system. So
Yeah,
I have a lot of
yeah, I kind of missed that, and that's why I had to re-ask it. Okay.
Well, yeah, and in family law, I think people kind of miss it. It's not just divorce. It's actually a very complicated area. It's because you can go in there, you can have a contract, you can have property disputes, you can have tort liability. It actually, what surprised me is that it encompassed all the different areas that I've handled. Domestic violence, so it deals with the criminal aspect of it. So it actually deals with so many different areas. These judges have to be a jack of all trades in order to be able to educate themselves and make a proper decision on any of these cases.
Okay. What was the most difficult in your right now? As you've been like a pro temp judge, right?
And I'm currently a hearing master in juvenile
Hearing master, yes.
and
What's
discovery.
been what on a high level would you say has been one of your most difficult cases to deal with?
Each case can be difficult in so many. There's so many different aspects of every case. What I tell people, as far as juvenile delinquency, anytime I see someone that we work so hard to keep out of the system end up in the adult system, we failed. And so we have not rehabilitated that youth. And the hardest thing to do is when you see that youth again, and they're like, I wish I'd listened to you. I know you tried to help me. And now I don't know what to do, because they're looking at a prison sentence, or they may only be 17 or 18 years old and they've been certified, or they've been direct filed up into the adult system. That's just difficult to handle on so many levels, because we try so hard and you build this rapport with them. We may have had them in drug court or one of our specialty courts, and then when they end up in the adult system, it's very difficult, especially when you're talking to their family or they've come through and they've been certified. It's hard to say, hi, guess what? I'm sorry, he's not going to end up here. He's going down to CCDC and he's going to be tried as an adult now. So that's that's a really difficult thing.
Okay. Obviously, I believe there's a direct correlation in economics, or the lack of economics, and the disproportionate amount of African Americans or Black people that seem to be in the system. And just as just a generality, how do you think we can reduce that amount? One of the things that concerns me, obviously, is how do we reduce the amount, and how do we reduce the amount of Black folks that are going into family courts, and how, just your opinion, this is just an opinion, how do we reduce it? How do we get to the point where we're having less family courts instead of more, from what you've just seen? Well, what you see is what goes on.
We always say our goal is to be completely put out of business. And so we have a lot of programs. I'm just going to talk about juvenile delinquency because that's one of the areas that I'm in. And one of the things that we really try to focus on is keeping people out of our system to begin with. And that involves a strong family support and a strong community support. And so that's why we have a diversionary court where we really emphasize mentors and people who can take other people under their wing and be positive role models. Because even if you think back to being a teenager, we didn't always listen to our parents. Your parents get smarter as you get older, is what I always say. And so if you have other people to turn to, positive role models, it makes a difference, because then they can say, I don't want to let so-and-so down. Often that's a coach. It could be someone, a teacher. It could be anyone in the community. What we find is that strong community tie with the mentorship really does make a difference. And that is one of the big strong points that we have in our diversion court. But it doesn't just have to do with any particular race or anything else. We concentrate on any youth who needs that support, because it's a combination of all the different factors. What we see now is a lot of our youth are being raised by their grandparents. And now these grandparents, they're not ready to be parents again. They don't want to be parents again. They want to enjoy being grandparents, but now they're becoming disciplinarians, which makes it very difficult. Then we have the teenage realm, which is completely different with the social media and, needing to keep up your streaks and your tweets and your Instagrams. And we got a lot of fights because people said something on someone's, Instagram or their Snapchat page or something like that. So we have a lot of different demographics we have to deal with, and that mentorship really helps. So we try to provide as much as possible.
Okay. Okay. Uh, well, I appreciate, Soonhee, you coming on and talking to us. Again, I encourage you to join the Independent Black Voters on Facebook. Let them know who you are. Our objective here is to let them see as many candidates as possible. Our objective is to let them understand the need to vote and to vote in the right people. So what I want to do, Jason, you have any other questions before?
No, I'm good.
Okay,
Appreciate you,
is
Sonia. Great
give
job.
you the opportunity, again, give us your name, tell us what you're running for, and give us your biggest pitch on why we should vote for you. Okay?
Thank you. Again, my name is Soonhee Bailey. I'm running for Family Court Department I, and I would appreciate your vote. I have 23 years of legal experience. I have thousands of hours on the bench. I've already proven myself in family court, and I would appreciate your vote so that I can continue to serve the community and the families of Clark County. Thank you.
Thank you very much. This is the Independent Black Voters on Facebook. Our reminder, as usual, is you will start to receive your ballots. This will be the first time that the majority of ballots will be sent via mail. We encourage you to vote and to be an informed voter. Our vote is not free. Thank you very much. And again, this is the Independent Black Voters signing out. Thank you, Soonhee.
Thank you so much.
Okay.